firstly, thanks very much for having me. I have to confess that I really loathe the word sustainability. Anyone who had their marriage described as sustainable wouldn't wouldn't be a very nice place to be. So I guess as a producer, I get a bit offended by the word sustainability because every farmer I've ever known only generally ever wants to improve things. So so I like to substitute the word improvement for sustainability as much as I can. So I will just quickly, for those of you who don't know me, my husband Blair, myself, we've got 4 young adult children and 1 new grandson. We all work in the business. So breeding in far north Queensland, Carpentaria Downs, and then backgrounding and finishing in central Queensland. And we're mad enough that we have just also built an export abattoir on farm, and it's been up and running for around 12 months. We've been doing our own branded beef, both domestically and internationally, since 1999. So our product ends up with individual restaurants all the way through to large wholesalers and importers across 30 countries. So but I guess to me, the forum is timely. As producers, there is a barrage of new obligations that are heading towards us really fast. I'm generally, the controversial one when it comes to these sorts of things, and I probably won't follow the script perfectly, but Alex knows that about me before he invited me. So I guess I'd like to start today talking probably just in a bit of an industry frame about some of those things that are coming towards us, and then maybe just talk a little at the end about some of the things that we're doing in the space of improvement. So I guess the previous speakers addressed this probably way better than I'm going to, but we all seem to get the brief pretty well, so good job on the run sheet. But tough talk, tender taste really does sum it up for me in how we need to sort of equally and simultaneously address demands from our customers and the wants and desires of our consumers. And Marketing 101 says you should know your customer, and knowing your customer is critical to this conversation and how we move things forward. I believe that there's a growing divide between what consumers want and what our customers are demanding. As producers, we need to be aware of that. As an industry, we really need to progress some of these issues collectively to be able to deal with those conflicts. So my consumers are somewhat similar to Paul's and John's, but when we talk to people in the street, when we talk to end consumers, people at farmers markets, diners in restaurants, the things that are front of mind are price, and second, price, and then there's this piece around environment, ethics, nutrition. But it's really interesting phenomenon to us is that connection to a farmer seems to automatically appease those 3 items, and particularly a family farmer. So farmers are apparently more trusted than doctors in Australia. Good job. But it is, it's amazing, the greatest single thing we can do in marketing, it's not social media, or it's not huge advertising budgets, is to bring customers to home, and they feel a connection to a farm. They don't have a great deal of knowledge to see that really we're probably the worst on the road, but they have enough knowledge to know that they can absorb people's passion for what they do, and that's building those connections, we find is one of the most important things. Obviously, having integrity and honesty in your branding is really key and vital. I've actually never had a consumer ask me for a copy of my HACCP plan, my latest animal welfare audit, or ask me what my carbon number is. Haven't even worked out what that is yet. Customers, however, are a different story. And for the vast majority of cattle producers in this country, their customers are large processors. A large number of those big businesses have some new obligations coming at them in Australian legislation in a hurry. And those imminent regulatory requirements will push the barrage down towards us at the bottom of the supply chain. And the consolidated nature of our supply chains means that there's really not a lot of ways that we're going to be able to sidestep that. And the unfortunate part is that nobody along the supply chain is really putting their hands up to wear the cost of this. So that's a tough discussion that we're going to have. As an industry, as a collective, it's my opinion that firstly we need to be honest in the discussion around why. I think sometimes we say, oh, it's because consumers want this, but I think we have to be a little open and honest and transparent and say, actually, well, BlackRock is demanding this of my bank, and WWF's giving BlackRock a good nudge in the ribs as well. I think we need to understand that these are non-tariff barriers in our international markets. These are the requests of activist NGOs, and they're the requests of index funds, and a simple Google search can find you the board paper the board advisory note where BlackRock is, telling JBS how their board needs to deal with deforestation, and, who they're going to suggest that those index fund shareholders put on that board. So I guess we have to be honest about how it's coming, why it's coming, and the last thing that we want to be left as an industry is holding the Bud Light can when this all goes wrong. So when that divergence between what our consumers want and what these other demands are, if that gets too disparate, then that's where we face actual risk. Sorry, and I typed this on the plane. So I think we actually need to, we need to address the cost that's coming down the supply chain, and we need to have a conversation about how we're going to share this cost, who's going to shoulder it, but we also need to up the ante on our ability or our capacity to lobby. Farmers have to become a voice that it's a missing seat at the table of these boards and these committees, and they need to kind of present enough pause around what farmers might have to say as what WWF might have to say about the matter. And I think the great thing that we have is actually the consumers, and we actually need to take them on the journey, and they can be our greatest advocates if we take them to make sure that their needs and wants are front and centre, and we have to address their concerns and make sure that we're doing the right thing, but we need to then use or utilise consumers to ensure that they are front and centre, not activist organisations or overseas non-tariff barriers that are going to impact the cost of their food and that are going to impact the availability of their food. We need to get a lot better at the equivalence game. Australia is amazing at high jump. So, a country puts up a non-tariff barrier for us and we say, not a problem. We've got innovative producers. You want electronic traceability, let's just grab that bar and we'll just jump it and we'll go over the bar. We've proven it, we can do it, we can implement it with speed, and we've shown it before. The crazy part is we talked about traceability for market access and how important it was to markets like the EU. And then we did it. We jumped it. We made this great implementation. And then just last year, we managed to gift all of our market access or realistic market access to that country to the other player who didn't do anything about traceability, the United States. So we really do need to make sure, if we are to remain competitive as producers, that we temper this stuff, that we make sure that we maintain equivalence with other countries. There's a great set of rules in the WTO, the SPS agreement that we've all signed up to, that says non-tariff barriers can't be discriminatory amongst World Trade Organization members, and they have to be science-based, they can't be discriminatory, and they also have to be equivalent in their home countries. It's a similar issue to greenwashing when countries put forward something but they actually don't get it done in their own backyard. A great example, and being a bit Central Queensland focused, this one's coming to us, is deforestation. So, the EU have said that by 2024, December 2024, they are going to ban the import of beef associated with deforestation. We've got, Westpac coming out with a similar policy last week. So we've got the department. I was in Canberra a couple of days ago. Department are saying, right, we're going to need to geolocate all of our cows. Let's go. How are we going to do this? And whilst that's important, and whilst we need to start working on how our supply chain's going to cope, at the same point, we have to ask ourselves some questions. So why is it that the Department of Environment in Oklahoma sponsor How to Kill an Oak Tree Day, and you get to take a photo of your dead oak tree and put it on Instagram, sponsored by the Department of Environment, all in the name of saving grasslands from thickening and encroachment? If you are, if you're in the Dahasa in Spain, it is, it gains you, some real carbon kudos, and it is a managed forest. The Dahasa does not exist without vegetation management. If you read the how-to manual and from the UK on their latest environmental kind of go-to, rewilding, if you read their how-to manual, it talks about coppicing their trees and what pruning they need to do and how they need to be selective in their vegetation management to ensure they don't end up with a monoculture of trees. Gains them some additional subsidies and some more carbon credits as well. Every single one of those activities in Queensland is defined as deforestation and gets us a really bad name around the globe. And so why is it that we're different? So number one, we're not really good at putting a frame around things. And number two, we actually have a different definition of forest to the balance of the globe, which is actually a big issue, and it's a pretty urgent issue for our industry to deal with. If you go to the FAO definition of forest, it basically is a change of land use. So it is, their definition of forest actually excludes any agricultural land, and therefore their definition of deforestation is actually a change of land use from agriculture to forest or vice versa. So what we actually need to do is make sure that we've got the settings right here, because those definitions of forest are also going to be critical for Australia to meet its own targets, and for farmers to be able to participate in carbon markets. I'd actually like to put it to you that brigalow is actually the world's greatest green cover crop. It springs up like hairs on a cat's back. We don't have to plant it. It pumps massive, it's a legume, pumps massive amounts of nitrogen and carbon into the soil through its root systems. It makes your tillage radish look like a toy. It is, and every 10 years or 15 years or so, we run a big crimper over it, and it doesn't even terminate, just crimps it off, and then we grow some more grass, and then up it comes again. It is, it's the reason in central Queensland we can grow grass-fed bullocks with zero use of artificial fertilisers. We actually need to get better at building frames around some of these issues. One of the greatest collaborative actions that we can do is to work on developing, supporting diversity and competition within our supply chains. We've seen massive consolidation in our supply chains to large multinational processors, and the reality is that far from being powerful and highly efficient, we've ended up with supply chains that are incredibly vulnerable. They're vulnerable to activism. They're vulnerable in events like COVID. And so competition brings with it innovation, it brings with it resilience, and it brings with it improved wealth distribution. And everywhere that we can take the opportunity to encourage competition in our supply chains, I think it's beholden on us. So that's kind of the nice segue to, as Blair puts it, about 8 years ago we decided to build our own island. So as long-term cattle producers, and with family that had had historical involvement in butchers, I guess we'd had a long-term, philosophy of breeding cattle to eat. And so 1999 we started the branding, 2006 we started exporting. We grew a diverse customer base. Our daughter was studying meat and animal science in Colorado. We were over there checking out cutting horses on a road trip up to Amarillo to see metallic cat. We had a family board meeting and decided to build an abattoir. It was a big step, and it's amazing, when you build the models and you build the feasibility studies, and then you get, for the financiers, you get the consultants to go over the models and the feasibility studies, and you do lots of risk assessments, and everyone puts labour at the top, and they put, cattle supply and markets, and no one ever puts government on the list. But 5 years in a headlong battle with our local council for a DA and millions of dollars, plus then another 2 years in the federal department slow walking us on export listings. It's been a long 8 years to get an export abattoir up and running. It is, for us, we see it very much as adding resilience and improvement to our company. And we sincerely hope that more people follow our journey, maybe do it a little better. I'm a very strong believer that measurements of sustainability are firmly rooted in science and outcome. It makes me really nervous when people start to tie carbon accounting to methodology or things like, or more fuzzy metrics, because the big thing that I guess we've learnt in our own business is that we're reasonably old school, and sometimes some of the old things, can actually be some of our greatest drivers in terms of our environmental and ethical footprints. I guess if I just go through for a really quick run through, some of the things that we do on farm, and lots of them are pretty common, but things that we feel or that we like to put forward to our customers. We have had a very long focus on building a herd that is based around doability and feed efficiency. We don't have New England tableland, unfortunately. We are, we breed a pure Bos Taurus herd in far north Queensland. And so they need to be resource efficient to survive and to perform. And we like to eat a lot. So we have a genuine focus on eating quality. And chuck steak doesn't need to be tough. Has 3 of the top 10 tenderest muscles contained within it. But we, things that we're actually doing, we've actually gone back in our genetics and some of, we have basically an Angus Belmont Red Cross composite herd. We're actually using some semen from the 1970s from the Belmonts because at that point there was bulls with actually 400 data sets of real carcass data as opposed to scan data, and they've done some incredible things for us. We're actually using a bull, an Angus bull that's heritage listed out of Scotland. But once again, huge on the durability and yield equations that are really important to us. I guess those are, a lot of our focus is in breeding. At a feed yard level, we kind of tend to shy away from, so obviously we're all UCAS, so no hormones at all. We don't use antibiotics at all, but we've also been able to eliminate completely the use of Rumensin in our feedlot as well. We just felt that was, potentially a forward issue that might come, and so we wanted to start playing with how we might get rid of it, and we did. We use probiotics basically and pretty rigorous animal health to sort of to eliminate the use of that. But it has been the processing where we've probably felt that we've actually really been able to bend the curve. So very proudly, our processing plant uses 30% of the benchmarked energy usage for our processing industry. And close your ears, Paul, because you're probably not going to like this, but yeah. We've done that using a diesel generator, which sounds horrible, and everyone says, where are your solar panels? It's a large shed. It's a 6,000 square metre facility. It's not a huge throughput, but the reason for the massive shed is that it has a really strong focus on eating quality, so all the way through to our commercial level dry aging rooms, and a really strong focus on maximising the outcomes through refrigeration and pH decline and things like that. But our energy, so we're the only export abattoir in Australia that doesn't have a boiler. So our entire hot water supply is generated through waste heat recovery from our energy, what do you call it? Making, whatever the word is there. It's quite amazing. If I was to put solar panels on the roof, then we would actually need to generate about 70% more energy than we currently do. And I think sometimes when I go back to methodology or being prescriptive about how we address some of these sustainability issues, is sometimes it can rule out innovation, and sometimes it can rule out things that might have presented an opportunity for us to all improve our resource efficiency. And to me, that's what this is all about, is resource efficiency. And I feel it's a more holistic way of looking at things than just that one squeaky element on the periodic table that starts with a C. So we've obviously, having the abattoir on farm, we've reduced 66 million tonne kilometres out of our land-based supply chain. So that is, Cows tessellate much nicer in boxes than they do when they're standing up. We have some sterilisers that we had a Boeing engineer build in Ireland that reduce energy and water consumption for sterilisation by 94%. We've used aqueous ozone a lot in our sterilisation and sanitation through the plant. So instead of using the chemicals at 3 and 12 on the pH scale and donning your gloves and your masks, it amazes me because it's such a huge lift in WHS compliance and things like that to move into an industrial landscape from farming, and so we wrote all of these manuals and everything, and then they basically say, and by the way, just drown them every night in chemicals, that's okay. That fits with the mould. But so we've been able to, through aqueous ozone, we've been able to basically reduce our chemical usage down to washing up detergent, and we have industry leading micro. So for instance, our evisceration table, we can swab it so we use, industry, evisceration table uses a massive amount of hot water, so they continually rinse in 82-degree water. Ours rinses in aqueous ozone, and so we can swab our belt between the second and last carcass on the day and actually come up with a perfectly sterile surface after dropping stomachs on it all day, which is quite amazing. So a big part of our focus is actually bringing back dry aging. So, we do as a family see plastic as a scourge of the planet, and so the ability to be able to tap into markets like London, where we can send a full loin wrapped in muslin cloth and tap into those markets without using plastics, we see as a key opportunity. Our daughter's actually doing a project on collagen packaging, on how we might be able to recover collagen from our currently valueless hides to be able to assist with the bits that aren't going to fit into a dry aging sort of program. But yeah, I guess those are just a few of the pieces that we're doing, and I think a theme of what we do is that it's fairly tech-like. None of the ag tech guys will get particularly excited about me whatsoever. We have a very nice SCADA system in the plant, but that's about it. But we do, I think we just have that firm focus on how do we improve what we do, how do we do what consumers, I got the word muddled myself, how do we do what consumers want, and how do we keep doing it better? Can I give you, I know that people have been saying for a good while that we've all got to be able to know our carbon number. Can I give you my number? No. And I actually fear that we're an extraordinary long way from being able to do that. Because quite simply, building a baseline in far north Queensland is about the most difficult thing that you can possibly do. It's extraordinarily hard to try things, at Carpentaria and decide whether that was a good trial or a bad trial, because every year is just so different. But I do feel we as a family, we don't see ourselves as one of those stories on that we kind of have changed the world from our bad forefathers or from a previous bad landowner or anything like that. I guess we're in a fortunate position that we feel extremely lucky to have had people who came before us that did an extraordinary job. That actually makes it probably more difficult for us to bend the curve, because when you've had that great history of land management, then it actually makes it harder to measure and to record incremental change. But that doesn't stop us from trying, I guess, to keep bending the curve. For me, I think to summarise, I think we need to change the narrative from sustainability to improvement. It is the key to engaging with more producers, because pretty much every producer I ever know has got that little line down the bottom of their P&L that's got improvements written on it. It's really, to us, I think we need to keep a focus that this isn't just about ticking a box for BlackRock or one of their one of their companies. This is about following in the footsteps of what people have done before us and striding further. I think we do need to collaboratively work better as an industry and with our consumers in questioning some of the demands as they come along, and ensuring that we maintain competitiveness and equivalence, and be able to continue to deliver to consumers that top line on what they're searching for, value. And we need to strive to keep pathways open. We need to stay technology and methodology agnostic, and make sure that we open up every single opportunity to leave better land, better cattle and better people.